This video is going to be a sulfite-containing food list and about sulfite sensitivity. Sulfites are a form of sulfur that occur in some foods, but it is widely used as a preservative, as a way of bleaching and preserving color in certain foods. This, along with sulfur dioxide, can cause a number of problems for certain people, including asthma, hives, itching, rashes, brain fog, stomach pain, headaches, dizziness, fatigue, and heart arrhythmias. You're more likely to be sensitive if you have asthma. An indicator is being reactive to a number of foods on this list. A deficiency in the mineral molybdenum can make this reaction worse, and the food list can be overwhelming with the amount of foods, but even reducing the amount of sulfites consumed can have a beneficial effect. So the aim is not a zero sulfite diet, but just a lower sulfite diet. Just some simplifying concepts. In most cases, packaged, preserved, and dried foods are going to contain sulfites more likely, opposed to their fresh counterparts, which in most cases will not. The foods with a long ingredient list are more likely to contain sulfites, and the less processed a food it is, the more likely it is to be sulfite-free. Increasing your molybdenum content in your body can help let the body to convert sulfites into the more beneficial form of sulfur, which is sulfates. The most concentrated form of molybdenum is going to be in beans, and they also sell supplements. If you have an allergy to sulfites, you're probably aware of this already, but you have to be very careful because some people can have anaphylactic shock as a reaction. So if you have an actual allergy or you get breathing reactions, be careful with experimenting with high sulfite foods. This list is an attempt to be comprehensive, but it is not complete. So just because a food is not on this list does not necessarily mean that it's sulfite-free. Getting into the food lists, starting off, we have grapes and grape products. Grapes are one of the only foods that use sulfites as a fungicide, so the fresh versions can have sulfites in them. And then things like wine, juice, and vinegars made from grapes contain them and have them added, and also in raisins. Next is dried fruits. Sulfur dioxide is used in many dried fruits to preserve the color. The fresh versions of these foods should not contain sulfites other than grapes. The two that I found that you can find without sulfites is going to be prunes and dates, but you still want to check the labels. Next is bottled lemon and lime juice and the concentrate. The fresh versions should not contain lemon and lime if you squeeze it yourself, but anything bottled or in a can is most likely going to contain them. Then is canned vegetables. Again, the fresh versions should not contain them except for sliced potatoes, but the canned versions are more likely to. And then potato products. Some potatoes are sprayed with sulfites, but for the most part, fresh potatoes should be okay, especially if you peel them. But anything instant or frozen is going to likely contain sulfites. Then we have vinegars and pickled products. So all vinegars are going to contain sulfites. Malt vinegar is the lowest. Things stored in a water solution, like pickles, peppers, relishes, olives, sauerkraut, are all going to contain sulfites. And anything that contains vinegar in the sauce, things like hot sauce and barbecue sauce, are going to contain it. With alcohols, the ones that are high in sulfites are wine, ciders, and beer. Most distilled alcohols are going to be free from sulfites, things like gin, whiskey, vodka. Coconut products, the fresh version does not contain any sulfites, but packaged forms, a lot of times it's added, especially in the shredded form. Corn products, again, fresh corn does not contain sulfites, but anything preserved or packaged is likely to have sulfites in the processing. It's dipped in sulfite to preserve the color and to bleach it. This includes things like corn syrup, dextrose, which is in a lot of artificial sweeteners. For dairy, the two that are likely to contain sulfites are going to be cheese and sour cream. Most other dairy should be free. Gelatin is going to contain it. It is soaked in sulfur dioxide during the processing to bleach it. Caramel color, which is mostly found in dark soda, is going to contain it. Sugar, beet sugar is bleached in sulfites. Cane sugar should be lower in the dark versions. So anything white is a lot of times bleached with sulfites. Things like molasses sometimes contain sulfur or sulfites. They make unsulfured versions you can find, and then maple syrup a lot of times contains it. Chocolate is not a high sulfite food, but it is a high sulfur food, so that can be problematic for some people. And then wheat products, anything packaged is likely to contain it, especially white products like white bread, things like cookies and cakes and tortillas. The sulfites are added as a conditioner. Then we have bagged teas. Loose leaf tea should not contain it, but the bags have sulfites in them themselves. Instant coffee can potentially have it, whereas the fresh coffee beans should be free from it. In seafood, most shrimp is preserved with sulfites for the color. Canned shellfish is likely to contain it. In the processing of fish, a lot of times they have sulfites added to them to prevent spotting, so seafood can be a hard one to find a low sulfite version. For jams and jellies, a lot of times these have sulfites added to them to preserve them, and then also pectin contains it. Processed meats, fresh meat should be free from sulfites. The deli meats can sometimes contain them. Sometimes they have vinegar. And then the pad that's in chicken a lot of times has a vinegar solution. That shouldn't be a problem for most people, but that is another source. And then in some countries, they're allowed to add sulfites to minced meat to preserve the color, but it is also banned in a lot of countries, including the United States, as far as I can tell. There is sauces, things like gravy, sauces that contain vinegar, and then prepackaged guacamole are all going to contain sulfites. And then lastly, some people are sensitive to high sulfur foods. Sulfur is necessary for life, but if you are dealing with a high sulfite sensitivity, you can potentially be overloaded with sulfur in your body, so taking a break from some high sulfur foods for a while can be beneficial. These include the allium family, which are going to be things like onions, garlic, leeks, and shallots, and then also their dried versions. Cruciferous vegetables, including broccoli, cauliflower, kale, collard greens, cabbage, mustard greens, horseradish, and eggs. Again, some indicators that you have a sulfite sensitivity is going to be if you're diagnosed with asthma or have breathing issues after eating certain foods. A negative reaction to high sulfite foods, including wine and dried fruits. If you react to both of these foods, that can be a pretty strong indicator. An allergy to sulfa medications such as Bactrim or Septra. And then if you have any skin issues like eczema. So if you feel like you have a reaction to these sulfites, it's worth trying a 2-week low sulfite diet to see if you have any improvement in your symptoms. Again, it can be overwhelming to try to find foods to eat, but you just get a few different staple foods that you like. For me, what I did was eat sort of chicken and rice with a little bit of fruit and some dairy, and then oats. And these are generally lower sulfite foods, and then stick with these, and then you can start to introduce foods one at a time and see which ones cause reactions. So if this information was helpful, feel free to subscribe or comment any questions down below.